Austin, how are you, my friend?
Good, Dad. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Hey, I am so excited for this opportunity for our listeners to meet our guest today. You and I have been talking about this for about a week, and it's finally here, so I'm excited.
Me too.
Today, we're going to take a little trip to the Big Apple to look through the eyes of one of my former players. A little over a year ago, I was reunited with Matt in his story of hope and inspiration since graduating from Liberty University. In a world where many people live from a darkened sense of reality and the saying, perception is reality, I'd like to challenge their thinking and introduce them to a new perspective of walking in the light. From the farm of upstate New York, an unknown walk-on became a scholarship athlete. From an independent Wall Street manager to the vulnerable reality of a dot on a mirror and the news, there's nothing we can do for you. This is your life. Our guest was once asked while sitting on a New York subway, have you lost faith in humanity since your personal tragedy? And he responded, if anything, I have found faith in humanity. As we open the eyes of our listeners to the new way of seeing, I'm confident that they'll be inspired and encouraged as they walk out their journey in life. Today, Matt finds strength and encouragement from his wife, Stephanie, along with his two daughters, Kiara and Summer, and his trusted friend, Chris. As a person of determination, his perspective on life is contagious as he lives life one interaction at a time. My name is Ken Karcher, and I'll be your host. Alongside me is my son, Austin Karcher, the co-host. And we would like to welcome Matt Sherwood to Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much, Coach. Thank you, Austin, for having me. That was a wonderful introduction as well. Thank you.
Well, we're fired up to have you, and we look forward to this time and just having people hear your story. And so we're going to kick off with the first quarter here, and we're going to talk a little bit, Matt, about life on the farm in Hamilton, New York, and your just time of growing up. And so I'd like to ask you just to share with our listeners about your family, parents, siblings. Just give us a little bit of background of home.
Oh, excellent. All right. So where I grew up in upstate New York, Madison County, at the time I grew up was one of the poorest counties of the nation. It was a very humbling place to be raised, but for whatever for to my family, my cousins, my kinfolk up there, it's God's country. It was beautiful. I loved it. The winters were brutal. We'd get 6 feet of snow at times in a day, a weekend.
Wow.
And snow would be on the ground generally from end of October till spring, April, May, and just rolling hills. We were in the foothills of the Adirondacks Mountains, and I loved it. It was tough. I'm not going to say it was easy. My parents, who are both wonderful people, but tough people, they met in the Navy. My dad grew up on a farm, and life wasn't as easy in some ways, and certainly money wasn't abundant, but my parents certainly raised me in a way to love the Lord, and hard work and a positive attitude can go a long ways.
How about siblings, Matt? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, two older sisters. Sisters. Yeah, they're I was blessed to have two older sisters. They taught me how to respect women, and they're wonderful people. They went on. My parents weren't college educated, and my sisters went on to. My one sister is a doctorate. She teaches at Duke now. The other sister has a real estate business, and they have relentless work ethics as well. But they were wonderful influences for me. And then I had a lot of cousins, a lot of big extended family as well.
Matt, when we talk about going inside the heart of the Sherwood home, talk a little bit about what was that foundation like in your home? I know from some of the research I've done that learning and hard work were probably two of the pillars of that foundation. Could you talk a little bit about the Sherwood home, the heart, mind, and foundation?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with hard work. My parents, they didn't necessarily have the greatest jobs you could look for. My dad, but they worked hard to get the best jobs attainable for them. My dad learned, to the electrical trade in the Navy, but most of his career upstate New York was like clearing right away for power lines. And he was an electrician, worked, so he would when the power would go out, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, he might be gone for 72 hours with snowshoes, hooked back up. And my mother, she cleaned houses, and she became a secretary as well at a university. But the majority of what I remember as a child is she cleaned homes, and it was very family oriented. The foundation was, everyone pitches in, everyone works. We're together, we're a team, and it's something that where I live now in New York. Different. I actually, the first time I've ever been to Manhattan, I was 23. So, I mean, I grew up 6 hours north. So it's a different lifestyle now than up there. But there's something to be said about the way I grew up. And
now, I heard you had some interesting jobs yourself. Huh? Would you want to share some of those with our listeners growing up?
Yeah, I had too many jobs as a kid. And it's funny because like the unpaid jobs, the jobs I started, as a child, was always doing what you could around the house, around the, it could be moving wood piles, clearing rocks of the garden. I remember the earliest memory of work that I have was when we planted our garden, and which was very big compared to down here. Clearing rocks out of the garden. And it seemed like no matter how many rocks you cleared out of the garden, there were more rocks to find. So things like that. We did a lot of different things. So when I was a really young kid, it could be feeding the calves, which was one of the most fun jobs. You have a little, it looks like a baby bottle, a big baby bottle, and you feed the calves on the farm that. And I've tossed more hay bales than anyone could count in my lifetime. That was a big summer job we used to do. I remember we'd do 15 wagons a day. But I had a range of jobs. When I could ride a bike, I would be riding to different farms to work there, milking cows. I learned construction and contracting through one of my dad's friends, and did everything from demolition, putting windows in, staining, floors, houses, putting floors in. I did roofing. Once cleared asbestos.
Well, you about covered everything there. I'm glad you did those because I didn't do any of those and wouldn't want to do any of those.
Yeah, there were some. I mean, the only job I ever quit was when I worked slaughtering chickens one day, and that was the one job I never will do again. And then, I even being when I lost my eyesight, I lost my job. I'm in New York now, and was having trouble finding a job in finance. I remember for a 3-week time period, maybe a little bit longer than that, actually, I was a door-to-door medical salesperson.
Wow.
A blind person just learned losing their eyesight, knocking on doors. I talked to more patients at the doctor's office than the doctors, but one thing I learned is if you're not afraid of work, you're not going to worry about not eating.
Well, that's a pretty good foundation your mom and dad laid for you. And now I know you had a passion though, and I need you to tell me if this is a true story. I read that you challenged your dad with a question as a 9-year-old. Do you remember that question and what he answered? Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that, and then what those passions are of yours as a young man?
I do remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. I asked him what a stock split was. So I was reading a book on it. I think it was from I don't know. I read so much as a kid. So Benjamin Graham, Remembrance of the Stock Operator. It might have been from that book, or it might have been from just what is investing. And I asked him, and he said, and it's funny because he told me the story later in life as well. He said it's when two stocks, or a company splits their shares and they're worth more money. And he said, I looked at him and I said, no, you're wrong. They're worth the same amount of money, just more people can buy them because they're cheaper and cheaper price. And he said, I walked away and he went to the encyclopedia to look it up.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, so I was passionate. I truthfully loved learning at a young age, and throughout my childhood, I developed two passions. One, I wanted to learn and develop an education, and certainly, related to investments, what I do now, and football.
When exactly did you begin your interest in sports, or specifically football?
I began my interest in football probably, Austin, when you began your interest in football.
So at birth.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I can remember, my dad loved the game.
Who did you root for? Were you the Bills or the Jets or the Giants, or none of those?
No, the only New York team, Austin, the Buffalo Bills.
Oh goodness.
So my adolescence in the early '90s were a lot of hope and a lot of unfortunate Super Bowls.
I just watched a documentary on the Buffalo Bills and those 4 Super Bowls that they lost, and I was just really impressed with. I was just really impressed with the how the fans all gathered around the team, and just they've been loyal, and they're waiting, and they're still waiting to this day.
Bills Mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're from upstate New York, you know hard work, and you know the Buffalo Bills. It's like something that's why it's the Bills Mafia. There's terms you can't say in upstate New York. You can't say wide right. You
can't say what?
You
can't say wide right.
Wide right. With that said, who were some of your earliest athletic influence that you had growing up?
I mean, I loved, from looking back, like Dick Buckus. I mean, I was so in high school I was a running back, and like in middle school as well, like in Pee Wee, I was both a running back and middle linebacker in high school. So I looked at both sides of the ball. I love the aggressiveness of like a Bruce Smith on the Bills, but even to the point Don Beebe was one.
Oh yeah,
and Don Beebe is one of the ways that your dad. That was how I got on the football field at Liberty the first time, because this is a unique story, Coach. I don't know if you'll remember this, but I was in Austin. If you saw the movie Rudy, you'd probably have a good idea of who I was as a football player.
Hey, I was a walk-on too.
So at Liberty, and this is a Don Beebe reference, but I remember the day before, a practice before, Coach came in and we had a team meeting, and he made me stand up and said that I was going to be traveling to Coastal Carolina and getting playing time, special teams, and I was always aggressive and played until the whistle. And I remember once another, and he was on a podcast, and he's a friend. I actually spoke to him this morning. Sam Pingato was running, and Sam was an amazing athlete, and he was, I was of course on the scout team, and Sam was on the other side of the ball, and he broke one probably for 60 yards, and I was trailing behind him, and he may have been 5 yards from the end zone, and I remember jumping and stripping the ball.
Oh, there we go. It is a Don Beebe story.
Yeah, and I felt bad for Sam because he was a friend of mine, and Coach, you ripped into Sam. I felt so bad for him, but it was a pivotal time for me because that practice or a couple of days later is when I was told that I was going to travel with the team. Got on the plane, got to go to Coastal Carolina and play in that game, and that was one of the things I remember about Don Beebe, just his never give up, play till the end attitude.
Absolutely.
Matt, you mentioned Bruce Smith. Just a little sidebar there for your buddy Bruce. I was a junior in college at Tulane. We were playing at Virginia Tech, and I scrambled out of the pocket, took off, which I'm not usually doing much of. And I get to the sideline, and unlike the rules of today, I sort of let up figuring, Bruce is going to let up. Well, Bruce didn't let up and broke 3 of my ribs on the left side of my body. So Bruce Smith has impacted me in more ways than you can imagine. So there's one of your other Buffalo guys. And then there's another guy you'll remember. He was a starting free safety. He was a good friend of mine we were high school opponents, and that is Mark Kelso, who played free safety for the Bills. But
awesome.
Well, Matt, those are some good growing up year memories, and we're going to jump to the second quarter, and we're going to talk from Liberty University to Wall Street, and just that time of probably you're 18 years old to 24. You're focused and driven on wanting to be successful in school and having a future. And so let's talk Liberty University with them, Austin.
So, Matt, the first question is, why did you choose Liberty University?
God, that's, Liberty was a university that, was founded on Christian principles. And I learned when I was 18, I wanted to follow Christ. And, every other college out there, there's enough ways to get in trouble that I thought Liberty would be great for me. Mind you, I didn't do the greatest job reading the Liberty Way and understanding the code of conduct before I got there, because I remember arriving on campus and my RA at the time, who actually played at Liberty and he played football, and then he did not play this year, but his name was Lee Bishop. I remember him walking into my room, and he said, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, "You have no collared shirts, you have no slacks, and you have no dress shoes." Because I'm a farm boy, I had jeans and t-shirts. And so I had to go to Walmart and get the collared shirts and slacks so I could meet the dress code. I remember I had DVDs at the time, right? So I had The Patriot and Braveheart.
Oh, no.
He took my R-rated DVDs, and they were, relatively clean movies, but he took my DVDs off the walls, and he saw I'm confiscating them, which for where I come from in upstate New York, I thought we were going to go to blows. Taking my stuff. But so it was a little bit of a crash course in the beginning. Even though I was sold out for Christ, I had to get used to certain rules there at Liberty. But that's why I chose it.
Awesome. Now, we were looking up and we saw that, you had some academic honors such as summa cum laude. You graduated in 3 years. You got an MBA and PhD. What made you so motivated to, move so quickly and get so many degrees?
That's just the opportunity to do better than where I came from, truthfully. Neither my parents went to college, but my mom was the biggest rally cat for college. She and my dad too. They taught me so much. I know we're past the first quarter, but they taught me so much in life. I know they used to get the pants that, I remember getting my school shopping at Salvation Army. And I remember telling her I didn't want jeans when I was in middle school. Didn't want jeans from Salvation Army. And my dad would tell me, you put your leg in those jeans one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
Mm.
And they would also tell me, get yourself an education, and you can change your life. Whatever I would do, I'd hear my dad, I don't want to cut the grass. Get yourself an education. You don't have to. Cut the grass. I was like, whatever. I knew what the answer was. If I complained about something, get yourself an education. So that was my goal. And at Liberty, I felt the richest in life at Liberty because it was the first time I had, between financial aid and my honors program scholarships, I didn't have to pay for it. I even had a stipend at the bookstore. So I, felt like, I had a meal plan. I didn't have to worry about food. It was wonderful, So, but I was just motivated because I wanted more in life. I wanted financial security. And that really was the driver for me to do well.
Now, obviously, you played football, and you started off as a walk-on, but you worked your way into a scholarship. Can you tell us a little bit about how that all transpired?
Well, as a walk-on, that was my goal. I remember training on the field before tryouts, and I sent tapes. I was invited by Coach Pete Sundheim to come walk on, come try out. One of my earliest memories before school even started, I remember running sprints on the field, on the turf, and that's when Jay Klein and Sam Congato came up, and I met them then. Was really motivated to do so. I made the team, and really excited. Then I realized that my first year is going to be scout team, and then going to truthfully not be traveling with the team, not be on the sidelines for games. And so that was just motivation for me to work harder. I remember Coach Williams was a strength coach, Dave Williams, and I would constantly be in the gym. I would work out and speak with him when no one else was around. So I'd do my workouts, with the team, and then I'd go do extra. And I just knew that is what it would take to be able to do more. And I tried to help the team in any way, and there's ways that I didn't realize would help the team that helped the team. I mentioned Coach Sundheim. That first year, so it wasn't my freshman year, I guess, but the first year when I walked on, that semester when the team was traveling to games, every time they would travel, that Saturday I would take a college level examination, CLEP, I forgot what it stands for, but I was able, as long as you had a 70 or above on this test, you would be able to move on, not have to take that class, and you get the 3 college credits. So I remember that first semester at Liberty, I tested out of 4 or 5 courses. And either way, I remember Coach Sundheim that spring came up to me and said, "Matt, you had 30 credits with a 4.0. How'd you do that?" He's like, "Single-handedly, you're helping our teams." So I'm like, and I remember replying, I'm like, "Does this mean I get playing time?" So, but that's what it took. It's just, putting in that extra effort, being focused, and having the right attitude. Because particularly when you're a scout team player, and you have to prove yourself all the more. And when you're on walk-on, you have to prove yourself all the more. And doing so, I won the respect of my teammates, as well as your dad, Austin.
Well, how long did it take to earn that scholarship?
Well, truthfully, the scholarship came when I was leaving Liberty. So I technically don't know if I actually received a scholarship because I decided to graduate early.
Oh, okay.
And I still had that full academic scholarship. So, yeah, I at the time, this is so would be my what would have been my sixth semester of college, my spring semester, and this is when your dad was moving on, and I had the opportunity. I mean, truthfully, I had 128 credits already after 5 semesters. So I had enough to graduate already. I had to finish an honors thesis, and I decided to dually enroll in my MBA because, in my viewpoint, they would pay for some of my MBA. And at that time, I didn't know what would happen with the new coaching staff coming in. So I decided, at the end of that fifth semester, that it made the most sense just to graduate, get my MBA the following year, and I knew that I wasn't going to make the NFL, so it made sense.
So looking back, when how did Liberty help shape who you are today? Would you say, both academically, spiritually, and from playing on the football field?
Well, academically, it certainly helped, with foundational coursework. I I worked hard at school at Liberty. I had a unique, I still had a work study. So I'd be working, my work study was awesome. It was at the library or computer lab, generally from 10 at night till 4 in the morning. And I would then sleep, wake up, go to class, take a quick nap if I had the time, go to practice, or, if we had the spring, it would be a little bit different because I'd be working out in the morning. And even my Christian service most of the time was tutoring other football players. But it helped just stay grounded, stay focused academically. As far as mentors, I mean, I picked up a lot of friends for life from Liberty.
Yeah.
Truly awesome people that are centered and have their focus on the right things. And then spiritually, yeah, Liberty is just an awesome place. I mean, I remember speaking to Sam Congato, who I'm just saying again because the podcast. When we left Liberty, I was at a hedge fund, and this is 2 years after we left at a hedge fund, and he was in the NFL. And we did talk a little bit about Liberty being a bubble, because it is just the student population, the campus church, just a great place to be, and they will make sure you stay out of trouble, else you will get in trouble for getting in trouble. But it did give me that foundational principles, and helped it, I guess, threw gasoline on that flame for Christ.
Awesome.
So Matt, we talk about we're going to go from Liberty University to the high of Wall Street. And my wife is from New York, Long Island, Locust Valley area, which I know you know where that is. And so I've always heard a lot about Wall Street. And here you are graduating, if I'm right, in 2007. You start out with Morgan Stanley. You're there for a cup of coffee for about 8 months because you get an opportunity for a young person that is really unheard of. And, I just want to talk a little bit about your makeup and then ask you this question. You're a results-driven person. Your motto at the time, at least, is cash is king and results is king, if I read correctly. You're this new hotshot on Wall Street. You get that big break to be a hedge fund manager, to run your own portfolio. Mm. So for our listeners, can you tell us, what does it look like for someone in that position, a day in the life of an asset manager, and even tie in your commuting and all that it takes to do that job? Can you give us a behind the window look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, when I came up here, it was definitely culture shock coming from Southern Virginia. I remember renting a 2-bedroom townhouse in Forest, Virginia for $425 a month. And, on this, I finished my MBA. On Craigslist, I find an an apartment. It's somewhere in Long Island. It's Westbury actually, and it was it was a bedroom in a house, and it was $450. So I was like, wow, that must be a really nice place. And I remember getting there, and I had it was I got there. I literally didn't. I was like, I'll get up there when I get up there because I have this good job at Morgan Stanley. I couldn't live in the city too because the city was just too big to me. I grew up next to thousands of acres of state land, and I ended up sleeping on an air mattress. And I remember after a couple nights, just looking at a cockroach walk past me. I was like, as I'm laying in bed thinking, oh, this is not what I thought it would be. But it helped keep me motivated to be in the office. I was at Morgan Stanley. I finished my series exams, like the 7, 33, 65, 3. And I always wanted to learn from the managing directors that work there, others that work there, doing a lot of like analyst work. And one of the managing directors there and I were talking, and he said, so what do you want to do? What's your ultimate goal? And you're in this associate program now. And I'm like, well, I want to work I want to be a portfolio manager. I want to be a trader. That's my goal. And we talked some different things, different strategies on what I want to do relative to quantitative and finance and fundamental investing, value investing. He's like, I have someone you have to meet. And so I met Jeff Stork, who is pretty well known. He used to be a prop trader, did focused on like ADR board convertible arbitrage at Bear Stearns. I know this probably is Greek to everybody, but I met with him. I told him my story, of where I came from, and this is when I could see. And he was impressed. I remember him saying, "Look, you come train with me for a while, a couple of years, and I'll give you your own portfolio if you prove yourself." And he, basically put his hand down. He's like, "I'll double your salary." And I shook his hand. I said, "I'll see you in 2 weeks." so I left Morgan Stanley early. And at the time, that fund was based in Stamford, Connecticut. And I was living in, I moved from my first place where I moved, my first apartment or that room in that house to Syosset. So I moved Syosset, Long Island, which is about an hour outside of the city, and I was commuting every day to Stamford, Connecticut. So I was driving, and that was about an hour and a half each way drive. Eventually, I got transferred into the city, which was nice. Then it was a train ride. But that was a really awesome experience, learning from extremely smart people. Learning in good ways, and then learning from getting screamed at in other ways. Sometimes that's how you learn in life. And 2 months after, I'm sitting at the end of the desk with Jeff, helping him allocate, putting trades on for him. And just one day he turned to me and he goes, "Your new seat is," and he pointed, at a different seat down, far away from him, towards the other side of the desk. And he said, "And you're going to have your own book of business. And here are the rules. And
wow.
Whatever you make at the end of the year, you're going to get 20% of. Good luck." So it was something I was supposed to wait for 2 years, and I got in 2 months, and it was a true awesome opportunity for me. Any loans I had from my MBA, I paid off that year. So, that's I guess that's that.
Awesome. So, in the financial industry and football, what would you say those two things had in common?
Oh, well, in the financial industry, I mean, it's such a broad industry, right? But relative to trading and taking risk and investing, that to me is so similar to football.
Yeah.
Football is a game of risk, right? It's a game theory in investing, just like football. Whether you're Coach Karcher and having play calls and trying to see get one over on the defense, it's a zero-sum game, right? They have a play and you have a play.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with investing. It's a zero-sum game. you look for an edge any way you can, and you want to control your risk. Because if you take too much risk and you're wrong, you can get taken out of the game. And that's a fundamental, the first thing I think about with any investments is the downside.
Yeah.
What is the risk I'm taking here? So that's how I think they're so similar. It's similar as well. Like I always tell anyone, to me, I remember like kickoff, that first kickoff, when you have butterflies in your stomach. You're excited to hit somebody, but you have that weird feeling inside. You're like, I just want to get this going, right? You have that butterfly. You're excited.
Yeah.
You're excited. You're not nervous. You're excited. But that, if you played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
That's how it feels when you're putting on a trade, or an arbitrage, or whatever, making an investment. You have that same type of feeling. So very similar.
So Matt, at this point, for our listeners, can you describe where you are now in your spiritual journey? You're trying to balance this identity that you now, understand who you are in your faith, versus maybe this performance-based industry where there's such high expectations. Where's Matt Sherwood at this time in his life, in his spiritual journey?
I mean, just like the performance-based business I'm in, it is humbling, and I'm certainly humbled in my faith. I continually learn every day. I am so blessed to be a servant of the Lord. And for me, I now am not just a follower of Christ, but with the family I have an opportunity to be a leader, a servant leader. But I have that opportunity for my family. That is, as I have, especially with a 15-year-old daughter now, and I really am focused on teaching her what's most important. And, those are the teachings of Christ. So for me, I'm still learning every day. I'm blessed that, my sins are forgiven. I'm blessed that I have grace, and it's a beautiful thing that we have, that we get to talk about our lives today on this podcast, but we get to celebrate eternity together.
Thanks, Matt. Well, as we come close to entering here at the end of the second quarter, I want to set the stage for your story. I think most people, especially those that are in the financial industry, I think you'd agree, Matt, if they hear 2008, they probably want to run or cry, because they all think about the crash, right? The market, and the bottom fell out in our financial world in 2008. But on August 13th, 2008, something else happened as a 24-year-old. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to walk our listeners through what occurred in your life, Matt, starting on August 13th, 2008.
So, all right. So, August 13th, 2008, it's a Wednesday. I was getting up. I knew I had, at the time, the market's just, so volatile. And I was trading ADR or convertible arbitrage. That was my main focus. So trading American depository receipts, so foreign companies that are traded here, and their ordinary shares traded somewhere else. So for example, Toyota, 7203.T listed at Tokyo, and they're 2 for 1. So two of those equal one here. And I would, basically buy, so if you bought 7203.T there, you would sell it in the United States, and you would sell the dollar and buy the yen to convert it. So was my main strategy. I remember, I would be up till 1, 2 in the morning. Sometimes I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning to see the Hong Kong close and European Open. And at this time, it was 6:30 in the morning. I woke up, I looked at the mirror, and there was just a bright dot in the center of the mirror. And I remember trying to wipe the dot away, and the dot was in my hand. And I remember just everywhere I looked, the dot was everywhere I looked. I didn't want to think much of it. At the time, my ex-wife was pregnant with my daughter, my 15-year-old. I went to work. I worked the whole time around the dot, just knowing it was there. Not really knowing what to think, but I could see around it. I went home. I focused on my portfolio because, like I said, it was a very volatile time of the market. So you were on edge the whole time, to the point where you sit down and talk to your loved ones, your family, you talk to people on the train, and in your mind, all you think about is, I don't know what's going to happen when I look at the computer next. And then I remember the next day, August 14th, I woke up and that little tiny dot was the size of a quarter. And I, still did what I had to do. I drove to the train station. I was living in Long Island. I was living in Long Island. I drove to the train to get on the Long Island Railroad. I remember driving. It was definitely prevalent that I had this dot. It was now the size of a quarter, and went to work, and I couldn't really see my screens that well. I can't, so I had the desk assistant. I had 6 screens, and there was an assistant on the desk that, I had these 6 screens. So I'm like, hey, can you help me magnify these? I think I did say white lie, so I don't have my contacts. And they were magnified, and I was able to work the rest of that day. Went home, just still focused on, the task at hand. I was focused on my portfolio. And the next day I woke up and I couldn't see my face or shoulders. And then I was really freaking out. I ended up still getting in the car. I remember not being able to see enough to drive. Remember getting beeped at a couple times. I got to the train, got there. I remember, walking through Penn Station. I knocked into a couple people in the subway. Got to my desk. I couldn't see anything that was magnified. I had trouble seeing my screens. I at the time I sat there. I remember going to the bathroom. Vividly remember this: going to the bathroom and just going close as I could to the mirror. Couldn't see anything. Splashing water on my face. Couldn't see any. Going back to my desk, and it's almost like just navigating a path, that I would take every day. Sitting at my desk, I called a sales trader, like an execution broker, said, I need you to flatten out of these positions that I had memorized, and just sat there. And I ended up calling my ex-wife. She worked at a medical office in Long Island. I said, I need you to talk to your boss, get me in with an ophthalmologist at the hospital. And at 1 o'clock, I took a train. I got to Manhasset, to North, now it's Northwell Hospital. And this ophthalmologist saw me, looked in my eyes, and dilated them. And I went and sat down in his office. Said, his assistant took me there. He walked in. It was very matter of fact. He's like, "You're legally blind today. You are blind. There's nothing you can do. You have scar tissue through all 10 layers of your retina. Your optic nerves have atrophied. This is your life. There's nothing that they're going to be able to do for you."
Wow.
Matt, what was those feelings and emotions you felt when you heard those words? There's nothing we can do for you. This will be your life.
I mean, devastation. At the time, devastation. I was 24 years old, thinking I'm invincible. I had a daughter on the way. So at the time, it was devastating.
I remember something that you said, and it's obvious. You were back to work, correct me if I'm wrong, within a week. And I know you made the statement, well, I had to earn money for my family, but in 1 week, you're back to work. Talk to us about that a little bit. I know you had to self-teach yourself. You started to self-teach yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the walking cane, some of those early experiences there. Talk to us, listeners, about that, Matt.
Yeah. So I mean, from that moment, I remember my ex drove me home, and she was just crying the whole time. And I remember just saying, "We're gonna be okay. Things are gonna be fine. Don't worry." Uh, I yeah, I do remember literally buying a cane. This was, I don't know when this was, a couple of days later, buying a cane off the internet, which should be illegal. I hope you can't do that these days. But I I didn't have time to go to rehab to learn rehabilitation, which they call O&M, operability, mobility. I didn't have time to do that in my mind. I had to figure out what to do. I got a doctor's appointment that following Monday. I was sent to an optic neurologist on the 19th, Tuesday, and the whole time I was just trying to learn about software. I had multiple technology people come to my house, and that following Thursday, a tech person who worked in even forget what office it was, but came and said, "This is magnifying glass pro. I use it today. I still use it today." He set it up, showed me how to use it, and I realized I could see about one word at a time with this. And he actually said, "But it's going to be better when you have a flat screen TV as a computer monitor." So we hooked up a TV as a computer monitor. I still do that to this day, a 36-inch screen TV. And that's how I learned how to work. And I said, "Can you install this on another computer?" And he did. And that was that Thursday night. And then on that Friday, I had someone drive me in the city, and I set it up. And I stayed at work the rest of the day. And was whack at work on Monday.
Wow.
And I actually was up on my portfolio 3%, more than 3% in September, more than 3% in October, more than 3% in December, and more than 1% so it was that's it. I finished 2008 up 18% on a portfolio. So but that was my goal, is to continue to work for my family. It wasn't the best year for the industry, and that fund, actually, I was one of two of 40 PMs that were up that year, and wasn't good for the industry. But for me, work was actually a great escape for me. As funny as it sounds.
So Matt, during that time and that transition from seeing and not seeing, were there any intimate conversations that you had with Papa or God during that time, just that maybe it was just you and him, and just working through or struggling through? I mean, I can only imagine. I'd be asking, why me, God?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly had anger in the beginning. I mean, I hate to say it, but God has emotions and gave us emotions.
Yeah.
And it was tough. I remember 3 weeks after losing my eyesight, my wife at the time went away on a trip, and it was going to be our honeymoon, actually, and went with a girlfriend. So I had to stay and focus on work and all that. And I at the time I was using glasses to help magnify. I still had a little bit more vision than I have now, but I had glasses because at the end of the day, usually my nose is dragging across the screen, and these glasses fell on the ground. I couldn't find them. I remember just feeling on the ground, and I couldn't find them, and just breaking down crying, just laying on the ground and just praying, and it was a lot. It was certainly a spiritual journey and spiritual warfare for me at that time. In Austin, one thing Coach Carter, your dad, taught me is, instead of saying "why me," this I remember, Coach. I remember you telling us this in 2004 season, in the fall of 2004. I remember you saying, "Don't just say why me. Say, what can I learn from this?"
Wow.
And John chapter 9, right, says, Jesus walked with his disciples, and they encountered a man who was born blind. And his disciples said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Jesus, whose fault is it? Is he blind? Is it the sins of him or his sins of his parents? And Jesus said, it is not the sins of him nor his parents, but so that the works of God may be displayed in him. And Jesus goes on to say that, he's the light of the world. As long as light's in the world, that he can show the works of God. And he healed the man from his eyesight, right? Spit in dirt, put it in his eyes, and told him to go wash his eyes out, and he was able to see. But I focus on the part that it's not his sins or the sins of his parents, but the works of God can be displayed in him. And so for me, those times were challenging, but I know that my attitude, my ability to overcome adversity, my humble ability to overcome adversity through Christ who strengthens me, will allow the works of God to be displayed in me.
Wow. Thanks, Matt.
Matt, thank you for sharing that. And that just goes right into the third quarter, because it's easy to talk about words, but when someone's living those words, it is powerful. And that's what you just said and did. And I will continue to share here, but I want to talk about vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity, and and how that plays a role in our wholeness and our healing. Now, Matt, I know you mentioned it a little bit, and I did some reading, but I think some of the effects came out in your first marriage, right? You want to talk a little bit about just some of the effects it had on your family, your wife, your first daughter, and this happened, I think you said, a couple months before your daughter was even born. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 4 months. 4 months before she was born. So, yeah, 4 months before she was born, certainly had an impact. No one expects to get married and then have their husband lose their eyesight. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't
Wow.
know.
And in some of the, some of the challenges, it's, I did not, I think one of the comments, Matt, you made is, I didn't want anyone to know because you felt vulnerable. And I think that, as our listeners are listening today, that vulnerability is real, as you just shared. But how would you say, looking back, because your story is such a great story of restoration, which we'll talk about, looking back, how has your vulnerability helped you, Matt? And how would you encourage listeners with that?
Oh, great question, Coach. And for anyone that has a disability, I hope they listen to what I'm going to say now. I viewed it as a weakness. I shut out everyone in my life, many friends from Liberty, many teammates from Liberty. I just didn't answer their phone and didn't return their phone call. I did not reach out to them because, to me, this was a negative reflection on me. And it took me years to figure it out that that's not the case. For work, Wall Street's sharp elbow place. You're swimming with sharks. And I would constantly try to hide it. And I look back and I wish that it was the opposite. I even had an interview, and this is in either really beginning of, no, this has got to be end of 2009. I had an interview with Julian Robertson. I met Julian Robertson, as well as another guy, Mehdi Tunsil, Murder and Sovereign Group. But Julian Robertson's a famous fund manager. He's since passed, but he has the hedge fund Tiger Fund. And he had Tiger Cubs. People like he created billionaires. And I remember hiding my cane. And there was a glass conference room, like a fishbowl. And he said, "Follow me." In my mind, I'm like, "Oh, this is great. He's not going to know." I'm following him. He opens the glass conference room door, but I didn't realize the whole conference room was glass. It was like a bird into a windshield. I walked right in the door. It was so bad. And then I had to explain it, right? So when you hide things, when you view it as a weakness, it could have a paradoxical effect. It could have a negative effect on you. And I, even for a long time, I walked with a cane, and until I got, a guide dog, because it was just, I could fold a cane. It's hard to hide an 80-pound black dog.
Yeah.
So, for me, I hope everyone out there that has a disability or whatever they're going through, it's not a weakness. People will respect you for overcoming your adversity rather than hiding.
Well said. Those are words I hope our listeners hear. I know I've taken them to heart. So tell us a little bit about your love, Stephanie, and maybe, how did you propose? I think Austin's got a couple things to ask you too, and I got a couple jokes or two I've heard. But tell us about Stephanie.
Oh, that's my queen. That is my queen. So I am just so blessed that God put Stephanie in my life. Stephanie has never seen me as a blind person.
Wow.
I say that because when she met me, I'm blind. She said, is that cane because you're visually impaired? And Stephanie just has a heart for me, who I am. And I just, there's so many amazing things about my wife. She's such a wonderful human being. And I knew early on that, she's just so beautiful. She has just such a beautiful spirit in her heart. When we met, like, we had a great relationship, a lot of fun. And when I proposed, her sisters helped me. She has two older sisters as well. We were going, one sister's an actress, and we were going to a Broadway show event, at the Boathouse in Central Park is what we told her. And oddly enough, this is hilarious. We had to transfer on subways, and a homeless person walked up with a wand and went to Stephanie and I both. You're married. That's proposing. So it's just ironic, but we ended up going to on the way to Central Park. I had her parents come in to Central Park, and there was a spot where there was a bridge in the background. Stephanie has a great family, close family, a wonderful mother-in-law. I have a wonderful mother-in-law. I have to make sure I say that.
Yeah, say that.
so and she is, and but and a great father-in-law. But her sister said, "Let me take a picture of you," and Stephanie was posing. I got on her knee, and she was so shocked. In the background, she of course she said yes, and then I showed her in the background. It was her parents with my daughter, and that she saw that we went out to eat and everything. And it was she certainly is the love story that I never knew I would ever have, and blessed that God gave me.
There's rumor out there, Matt, that I think when you were with her at one point, tell me if this is true, you asked her a question, I guess, out of good humor. You said, "Hey, have you ever dated a blind guy?" Did you ask her that?
Yes. That was actually when we first met.
That's pretty good lead-in that you did there. And then I had a rumor. This got to be a rumor, a headliner rumor. There's supposedly a Lower East Side comedy club that you're supposedly a star at on open mic night, and you tell blind guy jokes. Is there any truth to that, Matt?
No one can steal those jokes, Coach. That's a good IP. No one can steal those jokes. That's so funny, Coach. I don't know how you would even...
We need to hear one of them at least.
Yeah, give us one, please, huh? We need that.
Well, all right. I would usually start it out and saying I got lost on the way getting here, so I asked for directions, and he told me. I guess with the podcast or something. And then the other would say, or here's my other one. I stopped and asked for directions, but they told me no change.
You have a future there if you ever want to go back.
Thanks.
Oh, that's great.
I'll probably stick with the investment industry. But I got a good one about Stephanie. Stephanie learned sign language in high school and college, and just a wonderful person. I remember once we went to a restaurant, and there was like a mixer for persons with hearing impairments, and I was with my dad as well. So my dad, Stephanie, and I, and Stephanie's like, oh, maybe I should say hi, and so she said hi, and about 7 people who were deaf, just 7 men, just ran to her, ran to her and talking to her. And my dad turned to me and goes, I think she found the guy with the wrong
So,
disability.
Matt, tell us a little bit about your 2 daughters.
Oh, they're wonderful. So I have the barbelled approach to life, right? So I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she's super smart. She's in 9th grade. She's really talented. She pushes herself. Going to take a lot of AP classes next year, and in honors classes now. She certainly has a smart and hard work ethic, and she's a golfer, and she's definitely like amongst her friends. She's got a ton of friends. She's very popular as well, but she's grounded. She'll actually read the Bible to me. I'll have her find passages, and we'll read the Bible and talk about it, which I love, and beautiful. I hear wherever I go, wow, she is so beautiful. She's people tell me I need to get a shot of her. And then I'm barbelled. So my 2.5-year-old, whereas, and I think any father with a teenager knows, when you're, the one I'm calling, texting, hey, call your dad back, give your dad a call. Come on. My 2.5-year-old is the other side. If I'm around, Daddy, you home? Daddy, horsey, Daddy. She's just an animated, just at that wonderful age. She's so sweet, though. She's such a sweethearted girl. She's, constantly hugging and kissing, and she cracks me up. She's definitely, she's got the sense of humor for the family. My 2-year-old Summer, she's so cute as well. So yeah.
Matt, how has Stephanie and your 2 girls helped you navigate this journey?
They certainly, in so many good ways, they certainly helped me navigate it. Stephanie, she's so helpful, but she also is not going to overhelp. She's going to make sure I'm going to learn how to do things, right? She's going to make sure I have that fishing pole in my hand and not just give me the fish. And when I may have emotions get the best of me, Stephanie's really good at putting me in my place, which I love. But she's not going to let me ever be someone who pities myself in any way, which I don't naturally try to in any way. But even when emotions get the best of me, she wants to remind me of who I am, and who I am because of who I haven't lived inside of me.
Wow.
And Kiara's great. I remember when she was 3 years old, showing me a picture, asking me to feel it. She's her whole life, she knows me as having this visual impairment, but she doesn't view me as a blind person. I'm just her dad. And Summer, she's still trying to figure it out, because when we play ball, she can whip it right at my face.
Oh, I understand that, because I got 4 of my own, Matt, and that youngest one, goodness, she's wild, and she doesn't take it easy on Dad, so I get that. Now, in 2017, Matt, we were watching some other podcasts, and we saw that you had an accident, and it led you to this friend named Chris. Can you tell our listeners about Chris?
Yeah, Chris is he's the best. Chris is
I hear him barking out there, by the way. You better give him a bone. He wants on this podcast.
I know. He's the protector of the house as well as the protector of me. Chris is a great guide dog. I had a bad incident during a rainstorm. I was running. I was trying to get that speed that I used to have out of the rain, and I was swinging the cane left to right, but feet were moving faster than it should have. And I remember just clocking into a telephone pole that had countless nails sticking out where people hung flyers, and it was tough. It was tough. That was a tough day, just frustrating day, painful day. And I thought I just needed to do things. I actually had a huge interview the next day for a chief investment strategist role at a huge investment bank. And I remember, which when I went into the interview, I said, "Hey, first rule of Fight Club." but I remember I needed to do things differently for my family, right? And a couple weeks before that, I remember someone yelling, "Hey, blind man, you're in the middle of Fifth Avenue." So I needed to figure things out, and the cane wasn't cutting it, right? Cane doesn't care if it gets hit by a car. A dog does. Mm-hmm. And I went to train with a guide dog, and this was at the Guide Dog Foundation in Smithtown, and it was just such an awesome experience. In 15 minutes, I realized this is much more of an efficient way to live, a safer way to live. And then I went there, and I was fortunate to be blessed with Chris, and he is awesome. He does more for me than just help. He has even intelligent disobedience. He won't listen to me when it'll help me. So wow. I'm truly thankful for him. He's such a blessing.
Well,
and my family loves him too. You should see the 2-year-old try to ride him like
Well, Matt, I watched your little video, or it was a YouTube video put on by the Guide Dog Foundation, and it was 5 minutes. And I watched just you kind of talk about Chris, and it moved me to tears, really, just because God kind of put on my heart as I saw 2 pictures in that video. I saw you walking through the streets of Manhattan, I'm assuming it was, but down in New York City, and you're just following that dog, Chris. And you literally have, this complete trust that Chris is your eyes, and that you have no concern. I mean, you were just moving through, probably faster than I'd be walking through the city. And what it just showed me, what God put on my heart is this is what we're called to live by as Christians, is to truly let God be our eyes and our vision, and to just completely trust in where he leads us. The second thing that I saw, Matt, was you petting Chris. You were just talking, and you're sitting there petting, and just God reminded me is he's there to lead us and to guide us, but he's also there for that relationship with us, and there's truly this love.
Wow.
And I just know for me, and just sitting and learning about your story this past week, I've just been so moved and encouraged by your vulnerability and your toughness and your determination and your ability to overcome. But I also am just overwhelmed with, the picture I got to see through Chris, and how he represented, at least from my perspective, a parallel to, how we were called to trust in God and that relationship that he had. So I'm just, thankful for, that little video that I got to watch. but I guess the next question I'd have for you, Matt, is do you view Chris in that same way as kind of that relationship, or kind of your relationship with God?
Well, firstly, amen to that. I mean, when I got him, when I trained, that's what the trainers preach, right? They say, trust the dog, trust the dog. He's guiding you, he's leading you. So amen to that. I mean, it really is. Because they also say when you don't trust him, you get hit by an object, you be astray, and you may, lose your way. So absolutely what you're saying, and certainly, not only is it trusting and guiding him, but he is a best friend, right? He is a best friend. So the parallel is exactly there. You know, he's still a dog.
No.
Go beyond that. but it's honestly, I the way you say it, Austin, you say it best, because really, honestly, if you're blind and you have a guide dog, you have to trust that dog. That dog will lead you. And if you go your own way, you will lose your way. You'll get hit by something. So, 100%. And as much as you trust that guide dog to lead you, just like you trust Christ and trust God and what he's doing in your life, you realize that he is your best friend.
Matt, go ahead.
Matt, go ahead, Austin. No, go ahead. No,
basically, like, as I'm sitting and watching, like that video and just seeing you sit there and trust him so completely. I mean, you're walking through some busy streets now. And, do you think it has strengthened your ability to trust in general? Like in other things, not even just, spiritually, but just, do you feel like I don't know, Dad, do you have a better way of phrasing it? It's just like, I don't know, I'm kind of lost for words, but.
No, you're just saying trust in general, right? Is your trust grown?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Chris has certainly been helped that. But I will say, being blind, losing my eyesight has made me. It forces you to trust. It forces you to, you're forced to trust others. You're forced to trust God. When, I often, if people ask me how I'm doing and I'm not doing well, I just say trusting.
Wow.
I like that. Because I ask that question of everybody. That's a question in our ministry. How are you? And most people lie about how they're doing. So I like that. That's a great, I'm going to use that, Matt, if I can. That's great.
Absolutely. Because when I'm at my worst, all I can do is be trusting in
God.
God.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, how has since that 2008 incident, as we get ready to go to the fourth quarter in a second here, but since the 2008 incident and hearing all that you've gone through, how would you tell our listeners, or what would you tell our listeners of how you have, or how that has molded how you deal and see with God, other people, family, just relationships in general? Has it changed it a lot?
Absolutely. My walk has never been, I'm a trophy of grace, I'll tell you right now. So my walk has never been, it's been a roller coaster just like everybody else's. For me, I certainly believe losing my eyesight has strengthened my understanding of what it is to be a Christian and what it means to, have this, this amazing life through what God has done for all of us, right? Giving us Jesus. And, even if you look in the Bible, when Jesus was here, right? When the light of the world was here and changing lives and saving lives and having the blind see, the paralyzed walk, right? He would say, take heart, your sins are forgiven. What can I help you with? My sins are forgiven. That's the spiritual health is far more important than my physical eyesight. And my blindness doesn't define me, right? My relationship with the Lord defines me.
Wow, that's a perfect lead in, Matt, to what Austin and I have been talking about on another podcast we just finished. And, we're talking about perspective. And I want to help our listeners see the new perspective that you've presented, one in your own life, but I think it's a great encouragement to all of us. I love how you explained in one of your earlier podcast or talks, you said we're persons of determination. And boy, do I see that in your life. The perceptions and growth opportunities and victories I want to share with some of the people that you have been a part of. But, perception is a world vision, where perspective, I believe, is a kingdom vision. And, Austin and I talk about, someone that has perspective is someone that's able to see through, which I have come to see in your life, Matt. You see through those situations that are so difficult, where perception is one that is a look at her. They only see the outside. And so my question for you is how has your faith perspective helped you navigate people's false perceptions that you've confronted in your growth here over the last 16 years?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I'll preface it with one thing I always tell people is the perceptions of my abilities are far more hindering than my disabilities.
Wow.
Mm.
And my faith guides me through life because I will never let the perceptions of who I am confuse me to who I am in Christ.
If you don't mind, share with our listeners one of the maybe perceptions that you had to work through that others were looking at you, which in a way is not true.
I mean, it's just there's so many. It could be to the standpoint where the ability to, read. I gotta ask, how do you read? How do you manage with money? How do you? There's oftentimes it could be picking up food at a takeout restaurant or doing, walking across the street and someone will say something and, I feel so bad, for you because I know you'll never have, the ability to make income or have a wife. And I just say, or kids, and I just think about my life as, well, thank you. I hope you're better.
If he only knew, right? If he only wanted to come babysit a night.
So for me, it's the perceptions of just most people view, not most people, I shouldn't stereotype anyone, but there are those out there that view someone who is blind as totally having not abilities to survive on their own, don't have the abilities to overcome adversity and challenges. But it's not the case. And those perceptions, are, they're wide ranging, Coach. And just like, I know, you're looking for examples, but there's so many out there. I mean, I can't drive.
No, you've shared great.
Yeah. For me, it's, I can't drive or see people's faces. Other than that, I could do everything else. And I could do it through Christ who strengthens me. Let me be foremost to say, that's how. But in my view, I can't drive or see people's faces. Everything else, I could figure out a way to do it.
Wow. Austin, you want to ask him that last question down there about perspective?
Yeah. So how is your perspective growing?
Wow. So my perspective in life is growing so much through really, honestly, mentors I have in life, people who I, have been fortunate to surround myself around, especially as a recent, one of my business partners, Paul Blavin, and other mentors I've had in my life, Coach Ken Karcher as being one of them, I've learned, so much from smart people and uh, people who are courageous, who are wise, uh, that, learning to overcome, adversity, learning to bless others, love others, that. So I will say my perspective continually changes in life. Um, my perspective on what's important in life, right? When I flew, you asked in the first quarter, why do I want to fly through college? And it's because I want to make it a good job and make money and not, you know, not be poor, right? Overcome those humble beginnings. And the older I get, uh, the more people I interact with, the more people I meet that I'm inspired by, my perspective certainly changes on what I value and what I want to do with my time.
Wow. Well, Matt, I want to share with our listeners. I call them victories. They're much bigger than victories, and they're everyday happenings to you. But I want our listeners to know that just some of the things that are special about you, you've accomplished. Just your ability. I was listening again that your ability from a technological standpoint to learn information. You finished your dissertation. You wrote your first, I think it's called an ESG textbook. You've managed multi-million-dollar companies. You've led a startup, or you're leading a startup. You're a guest lecturer at Columbia and King's College. I mean, that's a pretty impressive resume. Is there anything I missed?
I am humbled by the opportunity to do these things, and there will continually be more tasks at hand. Right now, I'm managing a hedge fund, and I'm enjoying that. That is my focus. My startup company I sold last year. What I think you miss is some of the things that are the biggest impacts in life, right? I'm on the board of the Guide Dog Foundation and American Vet Dogs, American Foundation for the Blind, Lavelle Foundation, and I'm just humbled to be blessed with, the ability to work. I don't lose any cognitive ability. When I lost my sight, and God has just blessed me with, so many people that inspire me every day. People that I love the ability to serve and help them, and that to me is what's most meaningful.
Well said, Matt. Well, we're going into overtime and going to finish up here our time together. We've been honored to be with you, but we have 3 questions that we want to leave. And we call this our time of legacy, Matt. And I want to ask you, when someone spends time with Matt Sherwood, what do you want them to remember about you?
I mean, I'm not worried about what to remember of Matt Sherwood. Matt Sherwood doesn't need to be remembered. I want them to feel loved.
Well said.
Matt, what has been the most significant moment in your spiritual journey, would you say?
Good question. There's been many significant experiences in my spiritual journey. The most, one was accepting Christ as the Lord and Savior. That's the most significant. But I know that's what you're asking, Austin. That is certainly the most significant. For me, other than that, I believe there's been a number of them, and that's when I've led others to Christ.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Restoration, which I know you've talked about, we've talked about, is defined as receiving back more than has been lost. How would you describe what you have received, Matt?
Oh man, Coach, that's an easy one. I am my story paralyzed Job. I lost everything after I lost my eyesight. And honestly, when I look at my life, losing my eyesight was just part of the loss, right? I do. I tell I had a friend joke around about the top of my head a little bit thinning out. And I said I deal with lost right? So
There's that comedian in you.
So, but I when I lost my eyesight, the eyesight was just tip of it. Then I lost my money. I lost my wife. I lost my money. For a short time period there, I felt like I lost a relationship with my daughter. I thought I lost my self-worth. I thought I lost my income and the ability to work. God is good. You trust in him. I got a great job. Right now, I got a huge opportunity, great mentors. I got an amazing, wonderfully beautiful inside and out wife. I got another daughter. I got, 2 daughters that love me. So just like Joe, when you're tested and you feel like you lose everything, God will restore it to you.
Well said. Well, today we've experienced a beautiful story of restoration, one filled with courage, inspiration, hope, and faith. And Austin and I want to thank you for allowing us to share your story with our listeners, Matt, at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time.